Okay, well, I am incredibly excited to have you here, Molly. Molly Burke, who I've been waiting to meet for a very long time. And you're over here to speak for the Valuable 500 at One Young World, joining a whole load of other influencers later today. I have to make a shout out to Gulf International Bank to make sure that you are here because they think and really believe the voice of the next generation is so important. But I'm so pleased to have you here because we have such a shared experience.
We do.
And in a way, I wish there had been a Molly Burke when I had been 17 years old. So people who would be watching us from camera or from outside would have no idea that we can't see each other.
Yes.
So do you want to just explain a little bit about your story? Because it's quite different to mine.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed at 4 years old with retinitis pigmentosa. And so they knew at that point that eventually I was going to go blind, but they didn't know when that would be. So my family, started getting me into Braille, learning all the skills I would need, taking O&M, orientation and mobility to learn how to use a white cane. And then eventually at 14, 10 years after my diagnosis, that day came, and I lost the majority of my vision within about a 6-month period, which was no pun intended, a very dark point in my life.
There's lots of puns we can use.
Yeah, there's so many puns
right?
with blindness. So it's interesting though because I've known about you my whole life because when I was diagnosed, my family is from Ireland originally, so my mom...
You can't get that accent, by the way. There's no Irish accent in there, but you have an Irish passport,
I used to, though. I do have an Irish passport, and I used to have an Irish accent when I was little. I used to say I would be like vitamin and H, and I'd go to school, and the kids would be like, "What are you saying?"
Did you use the word jumper ever?
Yes.
Like for a sweater, a jumper? Because that's really Irish.
I used all the wrong words because I learned how to speak from my mom, of course, and so. Her mom was still living in Ireland while I was being raised in Canada, and an article about you came out shortly after my diagnosis, and she cut it out of the newspaper and sent it to Canada to my mom, and was like, "Molly's going to be okay," and and so my mom read that and did as much, found as much information about you as she could, and really raised me to feel empowered.
But you see, we were talking just before we came on camera. So my parents hid the fact from me that I was visually impaired. So I found out when my father gives me a driving lesson, which is so insane, for my 17th birthday. So how do you feel about that? How do you feel about owning who you are? Because I have to say, for me, I want everybody to be who they are, out in the open, fully seen and heard as themselves. That's why there's so much of this works. So what do you believe?
No, I'm so grateful that I was raised knowing that it was going to happen, even if I didn't understand that or comprehend quite what that meant.
Yeah.
I was raised being, learning as my parents were learning. I was raised within the blind community, knowing blind people, being a part of organizations that support blind people, learning the skills that I would one day need. So I feel like it's very important to embrace who you are from the very beginning and for parents to nurture and support that as well.
Well, I think one of the things we were talking about is there wasn't a Molly when I was 17 years old. And so I went into a closet for a further 11 years and hid from everybody. And it's actually this month, 20 years ago, I came out of the closet in Accenture and started this work. One of the things I think I was not aware of is all of the support and all of the assistance, all the skills that we have, including people, our dogs like Gallop or using a cane. And I think we really do need to be able to ask for help. How hard or easy do you find that, asking for help?
At this point in my life,
you own it now.
I own it. I think that part of me now being able to own who I am fully at 25 is because I was raised in the community. And so even though I went through an identity crisis when I did go blind at 14, and I had to go on that journey of grieving and recovery, I learned to fully embrace and love and accept every single aspect of Molly, the whole of me. And so for me now, I'm just like, I'm blind, it's just a part of me, and I don't even think about it until society makes me think about it.
Yeah, so we were talking about this. It's more about how society defines us or disables us, not the other way around, right?
Exactly. I don't feel disabled when I'm using an accessible phone. I don't feel disabled when I'm sitting around doing my makeup because I figured out how to do it. But when somebody denies me access because of my guide dog, when somebody asks my mom what I want to order instead of asking me.
Yeah, and like you're what, 25 years old?
Exactly.
Why would somebody be asking your mom what you want to eat, right?
Or when I go, on a date and all the guy can ask me about is like what it's like being blind. I'm like, okay, so you're not here to get to know me. You're here to understand what blindness is like. Great.
Yeah, well, let's just go and do a tutorial. You don't need to go on a date with me, right?
Well, that's what whenever people ask me now, like, oh, how do you do makeup? How do you use technology? How do you do that? I'm like, just go watch my YouTube videos. It's so much easier now. I don't have to answer the question every time. I'm just like, you can watch the video. Don't skip the ads.
Do you know the one thing that people always are fascinated by when they find out that I'm visually impaired? They go, why do you wear heels? And I'm like, why wouldn't I wear heels?
Oh my God, I'm short. I need the heels.
Yeah, right? So, but it's because I like the way they make me feel, or fashion. They're fascinated that I love fashion. You love fashion as well, right?
Oh my God, love.
So why would a visually impaired person love fashion? You're going, well, why wouldn't we?
Trust me, those comments every day on my Instagram, every day on my YouTube videos when people find my stuff. I have bright purple hair. I have tattoos that I can't see. I love decorating my apartment really cute with glitter and faux fur everywhere.
Oh, we love wear glitter. We're glitter lovers.
Oh, glitter everything.
I love fairy lights as well.
Yes,
and I love
too.
a bit of phosphorus. Now, coming to that, it's great. If I was to say to you, and you're over here talking about business and the valuable 500, and we're trying to get 500 of the most iconic brands and their CEOs to put disability equally on the leadership agenda. What do you think about disability in business? Where do you think that is?
I think still in Canada, where I'm originally from, 80% of blind people are unemployed.
80%?
80%, which is devastating. And I know for me, before I started my own business, I applied for 5 jobs. I started my business at 20. So between 15 and 20, I applied for 5 different jobs.
What did you apply for?
I got 2 of them, and I was denied 3 of them specifically because I was blind.
So what were you applying for? Just interested to know.
So I applied to be a camp counselor.
Yeah.
I got one of those positions. I was denied 2 of them, specifically because of my blindness. And I applied to be a leadership facilitator at a leadership program. I was specifically denied in writing because of my disability, which is illegal. So it was really, really nice that they put it in writing.
That was only a few years ago.
Yeah. And so, when I say, like, I've applied for 5 jobs and I was denied 3 of them, people are like, yeah, well, that's like the odds, but I'm like, no. The problem is specifically all 3 times they referenced that it was because of my disability.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
Okay.
And that's ultimately why I was like, I think I just need to start my own business and build my own career path.
Absolutely.
Because I can't rely on other people to see my value. I need to show my value. I need to build up my value online where people can go and find it and they can't argue it. But still, it's a struggle to be seen as equal.
What business, tell me, what industry within business do you think is either doing a really good job or a not so good job? So where do you think the champions are?
I've been really blessed to work with some incredible brands like Dove. I did a global Dove campaign with Aerie by American Eagle. I do a lot of their commercial modeling. I'm actually flying from London to Dallas to do an Aerie event. So I've been able to work with amazing brands who really live it and support it and believe in it. But also what's frustrating for me as a blind fashion and beauty lover is the industry I feel like still denies me the most is the beauty industry. Makeup brands consistently, we literally had a makeup brand say in words to my manager, we would love to work with Molly, but you can't see that she's disabled, so we wouldn't really get points for it, in our marketing stuff, we wouldn't be able to show that she's disabled. And I was like, oh, so it's tokenism. You're trying to use me for tokenism, and even then you feel like you can't, so you're not going to use me because you wouldn't get enough points. And so they're like, we would like to use a visible minority. And so, it's stuff like that I deal with. We had another brand who reached out wanting me to promote how supportive they were to the blind community with a new program they were launching.
Okay.
But then they offered my manager 1/4 of my rate. And when he said, that's 1/4 of the rate she goes for, they said, well, our disability budget is lower. What does that even mean? You pay disabled people less? You're verbally
that has happened to me.
It's unbelievable. So, we're making headway for sure. But there is still an uphill battle.
Well, can you just explain, what is your business, by the way? Because you are a very successful entrepreneur. So can you just explain to everybody what your business is? Products, books, speaking, brand ambassador, model, right? Author, you were everything.
We do a number, it's a number of things.
You were all singing, all dancing. So tell us what you're doing.
So I've been public speaking since I was 5, and I began touring full-time at 18.
Okay.
So I actually spoke at Wembley Arena. It's funny, I knew Prince Harry and I knew Meghan Markle before they met each other. So
well, you could have been part of getting together.
That's what I think. So, I've been honored to work with a lot of amazing people and speak at really large venues. And I toured full time for 2 years. And then at 20, I quit that job and started my own speaking business. And then that ended up kind of leading me to starting social media. So I now post on YouTube twice a week to 2 million subscribers. And
2 million subscribers. And what are you doing on YouTube? What are you talking about?
I mean, a lot about beauty and fashion, lifestyle. I mean, I just do a lot of stuff about what it's like living my life as a blind 25-year-old, whether it be dating stories or travel. I did a video on what it's like flying alone and with a guide dog hard. And how vulnerable it feels and how scary it can be and the challenges you might face. So we do just everything. And then I do commercial modeling. I had my book, I had my merchandise. I'm wearing my hoodie right now because it just released, so I'm promoting it.
Tell me what's on your hoodie because I can't see it. So what's on the hoodie?
It says Molly Burke in Braille, so you can actually read it, although you shouldn't because it's right across my chest, which I guess I didn't think out too well while I made it.
That's maybe to get people touching your chest is not the best.
Yeah, I know. I didn't think that fully through, I guess. But
and book, come on, you've just written your first book, is that right?
Yeah, my audiobook. So it's an audio only because I wanted to force people to experience reading the way I mainly read and the way most of our community mainly reads. So I was like, what better way than to say, if you want to read my story, you have to read it in audio form with my voice in high definition in your ears. And it's sold 200,000 copies since August.
So what's the name of the book?
It's Not What It Looks Like.
Exactly.
And it was #1 bestseller 5 weeks in a row, New York Times, for audio nonfiction, which was amazing.
Congratulations.
So yeah, it's been you know what? It's been a tough road to get to where I am today.
Because you look like, you're here and you're so positive. You're defiantly optimistic. You're all about owning the light.
Definitely wasn't always that way.
Right? But you've had to fight to do that. So if we have the ears of CEOs right now, okay? And so I think my biggest passion is if business sees our value, society sees our value. Mm-hmm. Because it's business disabling us if we don't see our value.
Yes.
What do you want to say to 500 CEOs? And it doesn't matter what industry. What would you say to them? If you had them sitting here in the room, what would you say to them?
Oh gosh, there's so much I want to say. But I think you just said it perfectly, is when they don't see our value, they disable us. And the companies that don't represent us in their production of products, when they make products that are inaccessible, when they don't use us in marketing, they don't give us that platform to be seen, that's what disables us, and that's what makes society not believe in us or not see us or not support us. Because when you're growing up, we all know, like the beauty industry, they've made huge headroads with expanding color ranges and foundations. So now the Black community is having much more access to their color ranges, which is amazing. And that's opened up so many doors for that community. And for us, we're not even halfway to those steps, and it's frustrating because I look at other communities and it's hard not to feel jealous of other minorities who have opportunity.
Right, and isn't that because we're pitting each other against each other?
Exactly.
Like LGBT against race and race against disability. It's insane.
There's so many crossroads.
Right.
There's so to not be building each other up together, but our fight we're much further behind. When you look at the Black rights movement versus the disability rights movement, you see that all of the Black right movement photos are in black and white because a lot of it's in the history, whereas our photos are in color. When you look at segregation, people, when I was diagnosed in 98, it wasn't just 10 years earlier that I would have been put in segregated housing and taken away from my family in a lot of countries still. And
if you've my condition in countries in Africa, you could be killed.
Absolutely. So our community is still very far behind a lot of other minority groups whose fight is in history, and they're celebrating their freedoms now. We don't have that yet. We don't have that same freedom yet. And so we need companies to step up and be a part of that fight with us. And we need our allies. We need our able-bodied allies to be like, we're here, we see you, we hear you, and we're fighting with you, and we're fighting for you. And for me, growing up, and I know you felt the exact same, you said it at the beginning of this interview, we don't just not see ourselves in marketing campaigns. We don't see ourselves at school.
Yeah.
We don't see ourselves at the mall. We don't see ourselves as Disney princesses. We don't see ourselves as dolls. We don't see ourselves anywhere. So when you're being raised to not only not see yourself in commercials or in advertisement, but to not see yourself in your own community, how are you ever supposed to feel like you can be a confident, strong leader? How are you ever supposed to feel like you can make it?
So one of the things, so there's some very, I guess, troubling stats that still exist around leadership and business. And we did this research with EY when we were launching the Valuable 500. 56% of our boards at business level have never had a disability conversation. 90% of our companies that claim to be passionate about inclusion, only 4% of them consider disability, which I like to say is diverse-ish behaviour. But the other one, which is very relatable to you or my story, is 7% of our C-suite have a lived experience of disability, yet 4 out of 5 of them are hiding it.
Yeah.
So your work and what you're doing is so important that the next generation coming up are not going to be hiding it. But why do you still think our leaders might not be fully owning their disability?
Well, unfortunately, as staggering as those statistics are, they don't surprise me, which is sad. But I've realized in being so publicly out there online to, I have a combined following of 3 million people. I hear it all. I hear all the comments every day. And the amount of people that say things like, if I went blind, I'd kill myself. I wouldn't want to live if I was blind. And they're saying to somebody who is blind, who had those same thoughts, who went through being suicidal, who came to the other side, and who now says, I don't even want to be cured because I'm that confident and I'm that happy and I'm that at peace with myself. And I think the reality is we have not been educated on disability. We don't talk about it. We don't see it represented.
Yeah.
And so for most people, it is the scariest thing. They would rather die. They would rather, face a life or death illness than face a disability. And it's because they've never been shown
what life could look
what
like.
life could be like. And that's why I'm so passionate about authentically sharing my experience, the good, the bad, the ugly, the fun, the scary, because I want to show them that, like anybody else, I can experience the range, and so can other disabled people. So if I love glitter and sushi and Ed Sheeran and the color purple...
and horses.
And
skiing.
Then maybe the girl in your class who's deaf or the boy who's in a wheelchair also loves those things, and you should give them a chance. I love nothing more than stopping in a grocery store when a mom tells their kid to shh when they ask about the dog and say, no, let me tell you all about my guide dog and why I have him. These conversations need to be had, and then people won't be so scared. And the reality is, disability is the only minority group that anybody can join at any point in their life.
Because 98% of us at some point in our lives are going to experience disability. You're absolutely right. 2 last questions for you. You have a combined following of 3 million. You're very valuable to marketers, very valuable to brands. Can you, are you finding now that you're being approached more and more to represent organizations, brands, products, services? Are you seen as an asset and a value to business?
Absolutely. I've been able to work with a lot of great brands through my business, whether it be social media campaigns or otherwise. But there are still consistently businesses that don't see me, that act like I'm lucky to be in a room, that pity me, that talk down to me at events. Consistently, my manager hears from people that they don't see me. They don't get it. They don't understand. They don't see it, and it's sad. But I'm grateful to have the brands that do believe in me and do support me.
You have a lot.
Yeah, I've been Herbal Essences, Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, Unilever, Aerie, Audible, Amazon.
So if there was one brand we could give you a wish for, who would you love to work with?
Oof,
who would you love to work with?
In the beauty industry, probably MAC Cosmetics.
All right, call out to MAC. MAC Cosmetics. Why MAC?
Because that's what got me into makeup. When I, was going blind, it's that same age around where everybody else's main concern at 13, 14 is like starting to date and get into makeup and find their own style. Their moms aren't buying their clothes anymore. They're getting to pick their own stuff. And just like every other girl, I wanted to get into makeup, and my mom's like, okay, well, she can't see.
Yeah, but how do you put makeup on if you can't see?
Well, my mom took me to the MAC counter, and she said, can you pick all the shades for her, all the right colors? She bought it all for me, and I sat there with my MAC makeup, and I played around with it, and I taught myself how to do my makeup, and every single birthday, she would bring me to MAC, and she'd have them color match me for the next year. And so MAC is just like, was a big part of my journey to recovery, because when I went blind and I lost all my confidence and I lost all my friends and I was severely bullied and severely depressed, beauty and fashion and discovering that I could still love putting on makeup and finding cute clothes and the confidence that gives anybody who does those things, I could get that same confidence too. So I'd say because of what they did for me in my journey to self-love and confidence and self-expression, MAC Cosmetics, and then in fashion, I'd have to say Gucci, because
Gucci.
Their branding, so there's layers to this. So they have this whole collection of stuff that says blind for love, which I just think is so funny. Okay. That I can like walk around with a backpack that says blind on it.
Yeah.
And then
owning it.
Yeah, exactly. And then they have a lot of stuff with bees on it. And my symbol is the bee.
I have a bee watch. What like?
I have a bee tattoo.
Thing? Yeah.
And I have a bee necklace, and all my stuff is bee. So my fans always send me bee everything. I have bee socks and keychains and stuffed animals. It's ridiculous. Okay. And then also, of course, their logo is GG. And my first guide dog was Gypsy, and my current guide dog is Gallop.
Who's sitting on my feet.
So my guide dogs are Gigi. So it's kind of like, it's literally the amount of times I bought myself the Blind for Love Gucci backpack when I hit 1 million subscribers as my gift to myself. And the amount of people that see that and go, that must have been custom made. All the time people think it's custom made because it's just too perfect.
Right, okay. Well, I think that is the kind of perfect way to end. So we're gonna speak to camera to this, because MAC and Gucci, I'm telling you, join the Valuable 500, please. Here is your best model. And I want you just to finish off by saying, you get 3 words. You get 3 words to say who you are, what you want, or just anything. Just what is your final 3 statements about who you are and what you want?
I think 3 things that I have within myself and that I want to bring to other people is empowerment, acceptance, and hope.
And lastly, a great makeup tutorial. Molly Burke, thank you so much. I can't wait to join you on the stage later on today.
Me too.
It has been fantastic to meet you. So
Thank
big
you.
shout out to your mum as well, Niamh. Thanks.